Dr. McGuire, let's shift our focus now onto clinical trials themselves. So based on your experience as a lead investigator, what challenges do you see in ensuring adherence during trials in the mental health space?
Well, it's a tremendous challenge. I mean, we're gathering data with a lot of work, a lot of vigilance around the rating scale, the time that we can gather the data, doing different samples and getting good inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. But it all comes down to one thing: if the patients are taking the medication or not. So we randomize into usually two groups, medication group and a placebo group. And the only real variable there is everything else is the same. We're seeing the same clinicians. Everybody's trained in the same. We try to, minimize differences in rater reliability, so we get good inter-rater reliability. But it comes down to one thing that is challenging for the investigator and the clinical trial site to control, and that is that patient adherence to that medication. There are different technologies out there, but they're really not that effective because it comes down to the person taking that. We do know that the placebo effect is particularly pronounced in mental health studies. I think part of that is we don't have that biologic marker. Our way of doing the rating scales to determine response sometimes is a patient-reported outcome. More oftentimes, so it's a clinician who's spending time with that individual for an hour, a couple of hours every week or so. That's therapeutic. So people naturally might get a little better. Someone's caring about them. But then if that lack of that, some individuals aren't taking that medication when they are actually randomly assigned to that, that is putting in that other wrinkle into that being able to separate from placebo. There's also we know that even psychotherapeutic sham treatments can be effective. Just the thought of someone helping you and caring about you if you're struggling with the depression or an anxiety, that's can be therapeutic. That's a whole idea. We do know that there's a complexity of treatment regimens. Patients may be on other medications. I just got a call last night from a patient of mine who's on a clinical trial. Can I take this now with this other medication? This other doctor starting me on this. And even though you're trying to control, but if patients do have a little infection or something mid-course of a therapy, what does that do to the levels of that? What does that do to the medication adherence? So it can lead to some confusion, some unintentional non-adherence. So we have to do our best to try to demonstrate that effect size between active treatment and placebo. And that's a huge challenge. They seem to fit the mechanism as we understand it. You get the phase 3 data and they don't beat placebo. And it's most often that it's not that the medication didn't have an effect. The placebo had a significant effect, or that if you just have a relatively small percentage of those patients who were assigned to active medication were not actually taking it within the parameters of the clinical study. That can skew all the data, all this effort going into all the funding behind it with the sponsor and then often a CRO, a contract research organization, and down to the investigative sites, all that quality control. It comes down to one thing: the person taking the medication or not. And if that is not reliable, the data's gone. It's just thrown away. So it's difficult to actually get a medication, especially in this space, to be shown to be clinically therapeutic and beat placebo.
Yeah, no, thank you. And, I know that the placebo issue has become a growing issue, which makes it incredibly difficult within the CNS space to conduct
Right.
large-scale phase 3 studies. At the same time, new medicines are badly needed. So we need to find a way
Right.
to make sure that we can optimize these studies so that medicines that do work are made available to patients.
Yeah, we're
Great.
we're missing so many. We've developed so much good science behind it, but ultimately comes down to that phase 3 trial. And we can't, if it's that variable needs better control.